It's been a huge day, hasn't it? Are you tired? Does your brain feel like you're just about to drain the battery? Well, I am here, I hope, to help recharge. And what I want to talk about is accelerating our electrified future. But I want to take you back before we go forward. I want to take you back to the late 1800s when Werner von Siemens and his brother William actually invented the first television. What? Television in the 1800s? They invented a device that they called the artificial eye that would transmit a 1-pixel signal, converting it to electricity and sending along a wire. It was the innovation that ultimately led to the development of television. It wasn't until 1927 that a San Francisco 21-year-old actually first demonstrated television. I know, these people in the back are going, why is she talking about television? Do you understand what kind of event we're at today? I'm telling you this story because from 1927, when that young inventor transmitted basically a line, the second image that he transferred was a dollar figure because his investors asked, when are we going to see some money in this thing? Come on, folks. I can do this all night, and I will, unless you laugh. So here we were in 1927, we had the first television going, but think about it, it wasn't until the 1940s that maybe 1,000 people across the United States had televisions in their homes. It wasn't until the 1980s when most homes had televisions in them. And how did we first use televisions? Have you all seen this? Have you seen the pictures from the early days of television? Hey, this is a society that had listened to the radio for all of its news. And what was the first thing that happened when television came online? Reporters literally read the news in front of the television camera. People didn't know then how they could possibly use the television camera and what could be transmitted, what could change in the whole ecosystem. And that's what I want to talk about today because this is where we are now when it comes to our electrified future. Now, this is the Ford F-150 Lightning, and Siemens is so proud to have been invited to participate as a partner with Ford to develop the customized charging infrastructure for them. Yes, Siemens is involved in EV charging. But when Ford rolled out the Ford F-150 Lightning, it wasn't advertised as a truck. No, the #1 best-selling truck in America rebranded as a home energy resilience system. What are the possibilities now that we're introducing all kinds of new devices into our electric networks? This is part of what I want to talk to you about because you in this room are actually sitting atop technologies, ideas, policies, directions that are going to change the world. But it's going to take all of us. Think about this, network effects. How do we bring things to scale? Well, any of us who've studied the platform revolution of the last a decade or so, seeing that the large-scale online buying, we've all become familiar with the idea of flywheels. A flywheel, in the business sense, is driven by network effects. What is a network effect? Well, let's take telephones as the example. There's an MIT professor who says the most brilliant salesman ever was the one who sold the first telephone. Because what can you do with one telephone? Okay, but then you get 2 telephones. Then you can make connections back and forth. And what happens when you get 4? What happens when you get 1,000 telephones? Now we have network effects. Now we have combinations of things that are happening. Now we get real value. And the same thing is happening at the edge of our grid. Because it used to be that information flowed one way. It used to be that electricity flowed one way from the source of supply down into its ultimate distribution into its many uses. now that we're building microgrids, now that we're attaching huge batteries onto the grid, we have the opportunity to rethink how we use the edge of the grid. This is television in its development. As we think about the grid edge and what's to come, as we bring new business models, new capabilities, and frankly, the ability today for us to ensure that we only produce power when it's needed and that we are able to support all of the people who need power in the midst of disasters, et cetera. This is brilliant. This is going to be fun. Now, we've just heard the Secretary talk about what are the things that are going on, the investments that are being made. If we're talking about an age of invention and scaling fast, ultimately what you really care about is the tipping point. How quickly can we get to the tipping point where individual ingenuity and investments actually catch fire? How could we shorten the cycle time from 1880 to 1980 in the case of television? Or who knows, in the 1920s into now with the case of the telephone. How can we shorten those innovation life cycles? Well, we at Siemens are committed to doing our part. You may know us as a technology company. We like to say technology with purpose, because what we're working on is the technology that is transforming the grid. Electrification, automation, digitalization. This is the know-how we're bringing into the marketplace. But we don't do this alone. We're working with policymakers. We're encouraging investments from governments. And what we've seen over these last couple of years between the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the CHIPS Act, and what's happening now with the Inflation Reduction Act, there is a stunning amount of investment being made into sectors of our markets that had long been ignored. A lot of people keep asking me, well, how much of that is Siemens going to get? And my answer is none of it. None of it. We're not a direct beneficiary of the programs that have been set up, but we are going to help all of our customers address the opportunities ahead of them. And we're coming in with commitments of our own. Recently, we announced that we would be building 1 million electric vehicle chargers before 2025. Our operations in Wendell, North Carolina are full to capacity, so we're expanding. We're expanding our switchgear factory out in Pomona, California. We're establishing new electric vehicle charging manufacturing in Carrollton, Texas. Spartanburg, South Carolina. I've told Lindsey Graham the future of the digitalized world depends on South Carolina because we simply can't build quickly enough. So we're investing in America because America is investing in the things that matter. Now, one of the things I'm most proud of as we think about the things that are happening as we get to the tipping point is some of the most iconic customers in the world are now making the choice to change and to renew their own fleets. And we've just announced that the Siemens team will be supporting the United States Postal Service, providing the charging infrastructure for their fleet of vehicles. I'm inspired as I look around and see all that's being done to transform the everyday. And I'm proud that we at Siemens are going to be able to help with all of that. But there's a message that I have for all of you. And it has to do with optimism. Optimism. And it's crazy because, even at dinner last night, we're talking around the tables about the challenges that are ahead of us. We're talking about the geopolitics that are rocking our world. We're talking about a society that at times feels like it can't find its way. And yet, what this world is depending on is the people in this room. And there's a simple secret that we simply need to apply. And that is the power of an optimistic outlook. Now, a lot of folks say, oh, optimism, those rose-colored glasses. Yes, aren't you naive? Not in the least. Optimists aren't naive. Optimists don't rush headlong into crazy situations. Optimists take the time to look, to understand, to understand and find ground truth. But optimists do something that pessimists don't. Optimists have confidence that we have what it takes to find solutions. Are there challenges? Yes, absolutely. But the work of SAFE and the work of the Electrification Coalition to draw stakeholders together, help us to develop a common vision for where we're headed, helping us to find solutions. And I'm telling you, I'm going to repeat this, it's not just what government policymakers will bring to the table. It's not just the investment dollars that are coming so freely through down to the state and local level. It has every bit as much to do with the alignment and leadership of the business leaders in this room who know the power of the possible and are looking for ways to bring their ideas to fruition. When we share as a community, when we work together to develop a common path forward, when we get committed to the potential that's ahead, then it helps us all detect the things that are in our way, helps us work through the issues ahead of us. Now, I'm going to close with what I'll just call an advertisement of sorts. And you're going to say, for Siemens? No, for the Optimistic Outlook podcast, which I host. I'm going to encourage all of you to pull out your phones, look it up. Because I've had a lot of people ask me afterwards, oh, I've forgotten the name. It's the Optimistic Outlook with a chance for me to actually talk to people who have know-how in fields that matter in these turbulent times. What we're focused on is the power of technology to address global megatrends, climate change, urbanization, the aging demographics of people everywhere, the ever-increasing global supply chain, and the digitalization of everything. These inexorable forces are at work across our world, and speaking to technologists, you will get that clear picture that we have what it takes to address and build the future that we want. Here's the premise. It's times of disruption that give us the best opportunity to shape the future. And I hope that you and SAFE will shape it with me. Thank you very much.